This womanist work, we gonna get it paid.
The views shared in this episode represent Kelly and Kendra, not our mamas, partners, church, job, or sponsors.
Hi, y'all. This is Kelly King Jackson and Kendra Ross, and welcome to this episode of our podcast, This Womanist Work. We are glad to have you here. So, what was popping in our group chat this week?
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna start with a little recency bias. Our good girlfriend Kaya sent us a short video of like somebody getting a tattoo on their thighs, and I was like, who's behind am I looking at? And I was just
and
then she was like, I was like, is this your butt I'm looking at? And she was like, yes, girl. I said, oh, girl. I mean, you still got booty, but you shrunk. And we were just talking about her, weight loss journey, and I was just proud of her because she's been on this for a while and she's been very committed to it. And I asked her, instead of saying how good she looked, I wanted to talk about how she felt. And she says she feels great and she's not as achy. And she doesn't even pay attention to what she looks like until she realizes something is too big when she tries it on. So I was inspired by it, but I was also laughing because I'm like, who just randomly sends somebody's butt, being tattooed? But that's typical of our group chat.
Yes. And, congrats, because when you are a woman of a certain age, the numbers don't move like they used to move.
Yes. So yeah, that was a little serendipitous moment today. And
yes.
So hi Kaya, shout you out. We can't wait to have you back on again soon.
Hey Kai. Yes. An interesting one was in my group chat. So the mayor of Birmingham, who is a young Black man, I had a chance to meet him several years back when I was there for a meeting. He's kind of like a hip hop mayor, and I put all the air quotes.
You sound like somebody's old grandma. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But his Instagram has been wild. It's been so wild in an interesting way. So he is really amped up about the increase in crime in Birmingham. And so he been calling out the homies on his Instagram. He was like, we coming for you. Like, he's been wild. And so it's been interesting in the comments where you have some people saying, thank you, because it's not snitching, because we're protecting our community and we're protecting our children. And then you got the people who are like, don't snitch. But then you have the people who are like, this feels very like centrist, Democrat, tough on crime. So I've been really intrigued by different perspectives of Black folks, because I think most folks, when they think about us as a monolith, and his chat is very clear that is not true.
Okay, I feel like I've seen, maybe did you send me a screenshot? I feel like somebody has been sending me screenshots and I didn't know I wasn't paying attention to who it was. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting place to think from. Like, yeah, people think it's centrist and everything, but like he's speaking about what he knows if he's from there, and if he's calling out homies by name,
Listen, what he said was, since some of y'all want to ride around with sticks with switches on them, let's go ahead and sit you down with 10 years federal time.
Ooh.
That was the lead.
I think I might have read that one. I didn't know what that was referencing.
Tell your sons and grandsons that switches are illegal and simple possession will get them an automatic federal prison sentence. It was just really fascinating because, one, he's using urban language, because somebody was like a switch, like from slavery.
That's what I would have thought if I didn't, have context clues.
Yeah, and then, people were explaining how you, I want to say adjust, but how you illegally change weapons to make them more deadly. But anyway, so yeah, he been like in your face, like, I'm not playing with y'all in these streets. And I feel torn, right? Like, as an advocate, I also understand how our young people get caught up, right? Like, I get it. And then as a parent, I'm like, I'm worried about my kids or my grandkids. Like, it feels very conflicting, but I have not seen someone of his age, because he's younger than us, to be so vocal in this way about the consequences of actions. So yeah, that really caught my attention. I'm paying attention to his IG.
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, particularly in this political moment ahead of the election in November. Politics feels weird. I mean, it always feels weird around this time, but it's like, it's always, when we get to this point, it's always like, look, I have so many political and social views, but right now I'm just trying to like not go towards absolute disaster and the end of the world. So it's really hard to be able to like think deeply about things so nuanced like that. But I think it's important that we do, because we have to remember that like we have a job to do in November, but we still got to live our lives every day. And we, you know, as contrary to popular belief, the whole world is not going to change in 24 hours. We still got to live day to day. And like, people should not fear for their lives in their own communities. And even though the people in those cars riding around with their switches, you know, are part of that community too, if they're terrorizing the community, I can see, like, especially when it's his job to like keep people safe. I can see why, you know, that would be, we can't just be like, immediately call him, you know, top cop, how they did Kamala Harris, you know. Has to have a more nuanced conversation. At the same time, it's wild to be like from the hood and be like talking about putting people in federal prison. So it's just,
yes,
there's a lot to do. And I'm going to stay out of it right now because I don't live there and I don't know.
Listen, he wrapped it up with Alexa, play 2 Chainz Feds Watching. So I was like, okay, I'm going to let you drop your mic and I'm going to go sit down because the mayor of Birmingham has something to say. And, you know, I am concerned about our kids, right? Like, it's not... I was talking to someone the other day about the fact that, you know, when we were teenagers, there were jobs that kids had. Like, you had a paper route or you worked at the grocery store, all those things. Those jobs don't exist for our children anymore. And so what are we to do? Like, we're in the hot heat of summer in a horrible economy. And we think that that's not going to have a negative consequence on our children. Like,
and here in Pittsburgh, kids, particularly Black and brown kids, can't go nowhere. Like, my niece, you know, who's now 16, but a few months ago when she was 15, was in the mall with her friends. And like, there's a lot of malls around here now that if you're a certain age, if you're a teenager, you can only be in the mall with an adult at certain times.
Yep.
And then she was there with some friends and they weren't bothering her, but they randomly chose these Black dudes who she actually knew. And they was like trying to kick him out of the mall. She was like, well, why are you bothering them? And they were trying to bark at her. So my best friend, who is a crazy mama, had to roll up on them and go off on the mall people. They can't go to the movies. They can't do nothing. And granted, I'm not saying that things don't occur because people they've been shooting in that mall before. But like, they are clearly targeting our children. And they specifically, I think, targeting young Black men if they see them in those spaces. So it's a hard time and there's not a lot for them. So my whole like response to all this is that like, we've got to be, as Black folks, have to be able to have more nuanced conversations about all this. We can't automatically judge somebody for their response, especially if we're not exactly in their shoes. But we have to be able to critique each other and be like, look, you know, because there's a lot to think about because folks are terrorized and like the crime rates and the shootings and the car theft, all that stuff has gone up in a lot of places since the pandemic. So that's a reality we have to wrestle with. At the same time, we don't want all our babies in prison. So
I mean, it feels like we're going back to the 80s and 90s again.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it feels
terrifies me, right? We lived in Brooklyn in the early 90s, or mid 90s. That was not a good situation. I mean, I remember because that was when people were still using crack. So there were still crack vials on the ground. And remember the little drug dealer used to walk us? Because I was like, I'm talking to all the homies.
Wait, what drug dealer used to walk us?
There used to be a young guy who we on a corner where we used to get the fried chicken wings.
That sounds vaguely familiar, but I don't. But go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And we would just kind of be chit-chatting, but I was like, yeah, we gonna chat because I need to make sure I make it to the house. And we only lived a block from the train, but you know, like, we was out.
That's when Clinton Hill was Clinton Hills. People don't know about Clinton Hills. They still have...
No, they don't.
Like, you know, people look at Clinton Hill now and I'm like, this is the Clinton Hill Biggie was talking about? Well, Biggie used to call it Best Eye because technically part of Clinton Hill was Best Eye at that time. And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, we lived in Biggie's Clinton Hills, Bed-Stuy. Like,
Go
literally,
on the
we used to go
corner.
out of our back door, and he lived right there on St. James.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Are you a Black woman in middle management looking to elevate your leadership skills in a safe space? Then listen up, because I have something special just for you. Join a coaching group of like-minded women focusing on emotional intelligence, management skills, and leading in white spaces. In our group coaching sessions, you'll gain leadership skills, tools, and strategies. Plus, you'll gain a powerful network of sisters who understand your journey. No more leaning alone. Ready to take the next step? Visit www.iamkelly to learn more and join a cohort. Let's lead together.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, I just don't want us to. I don't want us to go back, and we know what it was like. Watching our friends disappear, right? Friends getting shot, friends going to jail, like
With foolishness.
I just want something better for them.
I remember the first time I went to a funeral of somebody I grew up with from church.
Same.
He got killed over a girl.
Same.
And I don't even think he was really messing with the girl. I think it might have been like just a misunderstanding. Somebody just rode up on his porch and like shot him. That was my boy since like elementary school. It was wild. I was like, oh, like this is like normal life. Like people be watching, Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society and all that stuff. And people like, and like, I mean, I wasn't living in South Central on the set, but like had very similar experiences in terms of just losing folks at a young age to foolishness. So you're right.
Yeah.
I do think a lot of times like, oh, things are worse than ever been. I'm like, no, things are just documented differently. Like we know what's going on at all times now, but there was stuff going on back then. You were privileged to not know about.
Yeah.
For real. I was thinking about, I forgot the young lady's name in Illinois that was killed by the police. And I'm just like, every time I see something like that come up, obviously it's not big news like it was during Black Lives Matter, which is sad. So I had to remind myself, girl, go ahead and repost this on your stories because people need to know. But like, I think about how much of this stuff happened when we were like young teenagers or young adults and we just didn't know. And for some people, they're like, oh, these things just started happening. Like, no, I'm sure this happened probably even more regularly than we would ever know, but there was no documentation. So there's like obviously positives, or positive in the sense that at least we know so we can react to it, and a lot of negatives to like having access to so much information so readily. Because it feels like you would think this would be a time that a time of clarity because we know so much, but actually it's the information overload and people don't even know what to believe anymore. People who I thought were smart are saying wild things about who they're going to vote for and why they're going to vote for them. And yeah. So apparently there's a same-sex couple in the middle of my block, but there's a newly minted Trump sign in the yard. There was always one lady that had Trump signs, but nobody pays her any attention. But there's a house like five doors down. Actually, the house I was gonna try to buy before I bought this one, but they didn't want to sell to no black lady. But that's another story for another time. Anyway, the people who lived there, I didn't realize was a same-sex couple. It was two women. But Greg said he knows that, and we asked how he knows. He said, "Trust me, I know the tea." Anyway, these two women have a Trump sign in their front yard, and I'm like, make this make sense. He really don't mess with y'all, but okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and the reasons that people are just excusing this toxic human being president is just bananas. I mean, whether it's the church people who say they don't care what he's done, the business people who say, and everybody for different interests, right? So the church people say they don't care what he's done as long as he outlaws abortion nationwide, they're down with him. And then you got the business people who say, yeah, we know he's an asshole, but, we're concerned about the economy. And it's just, and now you got the entertainer. It's just absolutely wild that on a public stage, we continue to give white men a pass for every awful, horrible thing that they do, including the person who shot him. I don't hear nothing about this man. And I'm just like, what if a black man had shot him? We would be on a continuous loop of his childhood, his high school graduation picture, like school records. But we just continue as a country to default to white men as the fixer of all the things. Absolutely bananas.
Yeah, I live in it. So, Pittsburgh is a very interesting place because it's like the city is like squarely Democratic, like, and it has been for years. We're a union town. We are very Democratic, but our county is not. Our county is, and Butler, even though Butler is the next county over, Butler is like Trump country. Like, that's why he was there. If you drive through Butler, it's like, oh, these people worship the ground he walks on. I remember after the last time he was in office, I drove through Trump. I was about to say I drove through Trump country. I drove through Butler on the way to a farm I was going to. And when I tell you, it looked like he was campaigning because every single farm, everything had Trump merch. They were selling merch and stuff as if he was like campaigning. So it's wild out there. But anyway, yeah, but in Pittsburgh, it's squarely Democratic, but it's very like old school. Like, they give Summer Lee a run for her money because she's from here. They're like very center. Some of them is a little Republican-y. And quite frankly, in many ways, the Democratic Party is what the Republican Party was like certain years ago here,
Can you say that again?
I mean, I ain't trying to get in trouble or nothing because this is my city. I got to live here. And technically I'm a government official. So I have to be careful about what I say. I'm an official of the state of Pennsylvania. I hold two kind of official.
I'm sorry. I know you said that in the past, but I'm just really, I think, reflecting on what that means.
I mean, I can have my beliefs. I'm not saying anything about my state or my region. I'm just saying the truth. Is that
fascinating?
The political parties, yeah. So, and yet, similar to you, I love my city for all its faults. I'm kind of on my James Baldwin where I'm like, it's because I love her that I critique her so much. That like Pittsburgh is a very white. It's one of the whitest metropolitan areas in the country. Very white. Very has a blue collar past, but has reinvented itself specifically in the city of Pittsburgh through like robotics and tech and the medical field because UPMC is a mammoth. But we are who we are. We're complicated. And this sounds weird, but I'm always like, if I prefer my racist over racists in other places.
Because you're racist.
I know my racist. Because I know they're still going to, like, I live near them, but I know, like, we're cordial. We'll still look out for each other. But I just know where we stand.
Yeah.
And it is what it is.
I mean, there's a lot of conversation, particularly after 45 was shot, around the division must stop, the division must stop. And I was on a call this week and was expressing my concern that there are people who are causing real harm, and just saying the division must stop doesn't address the harms that are happening, right? And so we got into this question of like, can you come together without accountability? Yes, there are things we can all agree to disagree on. And then there are some fundamental things that we cannot. And that I am not clear how we find a path forward. One of the people I do follow on IG he's a Christian guy who's really in pop culture. And we don't have the same theology, but I appreciate his content. And his line has been, we don't stand on issues, we stand with people, right? And so his whole thing is like, yeah, there are going to be fundamental issues that we disagree on, but as a human being, there are things that still connect us. And he put up a post about praying for 45 after he was shot, and like he lost thousands of followers. And it was fascinating watching people in the comments be like, no, I'm not praying for him. I ain't feeling it. I'm not doing it. No. Why should we pray for someone who's caused violence? Like, it was fascinating. And his whole point was, I don't have to like 45, pray for 45. And I was intrigued by the whole thing, right? But I feel like we have this constant back and forth about, like, how do we come together without a fundamental acknowledgement that there are some real harms that have to be addressed before that will ever happen. And that has nothing to do with I'm a Democrat and you're a Republican. But I feel like that gets lost in the conversation.
Agreed. And I mean, yeah, let's be very clear. When I say I prefer my races over other races, don't mean I fool them like that. Like, yeah. I don't speak, like, I'm very clear on, like, if your beliefs basically, like, are not rooted in, like, my humanity being equal to your humanity, I can't rock with you. I don't care who you are. I don't care, black, white, Puerto Rican, or Haitian.
So then what do we come together on?
I mean, I know I think I know the person you're talking about, and I saw bits and stuff of the post. And even if I wouldn't do something, mm-hmm. I'm at a point in my life where I have less of these, like, visceral reactions to things. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to pray, if you want to pray for Donald, go right ahead. I got better things to pray about. I'm sorry, but I'm not mad at you. I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna unfollow you. It's not like you said you was gonna be BFFs with him. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, like, because I also know where I mean, I'm assuming I know. I think I know where it's coming from. It's just like, that's what we were taught, is that, like, no matter what. I remember there were people who were upset when people were cheering on the death of bin Laden, and they were like, how can you cheer on another human being's death? Well, I'm like, well, like, there's, like, some extremes to this, right? So,
I mean, it's also the abolitionists who say they wouldn't want 45 to go to prison. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I know I'm not an abolitionist, because I'm going to tell you right now, you mess with my people, I'm going to put you under the jail. Like, I'm very clear. Like, I respect why people do. I mean, I got 2 family members right now I need to be writing letters to. And I know what the carceral state does. And to our nuance conversation from before, people have to be held accountable for their actions. But in an abolitionist frame, what they talk about is accountability is not incarceration. So he should be accountable for what he did, but prison is not that accountability.
And my answer to that would be, like, we don't have the framework for what that is right now. So when we do, I'm with you. But right now we don't. I'm not. And we have to learn how to, like, the hardest part is that we have to learn how to dream and work towards what we want and recognize where we are. Ooh. And a lot of people think that you have to make choices. And my thing is, like, is it better for him just to be out here wilding? For us? Is it better for society? No, it's not. So it's not, like, sometimes standing on principle to an extreme, it has really adverse effects. And I think people say that that's, in the past, people who stood on principle to extremes are who pushed the needle. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I feel like it's those little, I'm not anti-radical. Like, I love radical people, but I'm saying is, like, it takes a spectrum of folks to move things along. We need our advocates. We need our activists. We need our people who are going to keep the lights on. We need the people who feeding people in the back room. I don't believe that one group of people have led the change. I believe that there was a spectrum of folks, and that our hope is that more of the people fall to this side of the spectrum to that, and that's how we win.
Anything else in the chat before we let the people go?
No, I'm just thinking in my head what I need to edit out so I don't get kicked off my government. I think that's enough for today. I think I'm gonna stop talking because I was about to say some other stuff and I was like, "Oh, girl, no, you can't say that."
What are our takeaways for our bonus episode?
I think just a takeaway for me is just my need and our need to still have nuanced, rich political conversations, even in these really polarizing times. And it's hard to find a safe space for that. And also to your other point about just like, how do we align with each other as humans, not just based on like our political affiliation, and how do we do that and maintain our own humanity? are things that I'm gonna be thinking about as we go back to the group chat.
Yeah. I think I'm similarly thinking about the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And just like I'm thinking about who in my world and is in my world and where are they on that spectrum.
Cool. Well,
awesome.
with that,
well, we're happy that you stuck with us for this episode. Don't forget to follow us and join our group chat conversation on IG at This Womanist Work Pod. Until the next episode, we'll see you in the
peace. Now, when you came home, remember that day you came home and you saw a dead body on the street?
Nope, block that out.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know if it was dead, but somebody got shot and you was walking home.
I don't doubt it.
Yeah, somebody got shot and you was walking up Washington Avenue and you saw it.
Yeah.
You didn't see them get shot, but you saw them laying there.
Yeah.
Ooh, child, I'm sorry to re-traumatize.